I see what you're trying. You're trying to make it sound like there's like some great journalistic piece.
They know what they're talking about. These guys are sharp.
Let's talk a little Miami Hurricane football with a guy who knows what he's talking about when it comes to Miami Hurricane sports. Danny Money, CanesInSight.com. He's an owner, writer, contributor, podcast host. Does a little bit of everything down there in the 305. Danny, good morning. How you doing, buddy?
Man, jacked up. About 2 weeks away. Getting excited.
All right, see, you're excited. Somebody asked me yesterday my feelings on the Miami Hurricane football situation, and I kind of go through like a bit of a roller coaster. Some days I'm up, some days I'm down, some days I'm up. I guess I just kind of ebb and flow with the latest practice reports or whatnot. You're excited. You're excited for the season to start, or are you excited for the potential of this upcoming season for the University of Miami?
Well, I think your life might be a little more entertaining than mine because I'm just happy to see football, man. I mean, these weekends have been brutal. I mean, like you said, we're living and dying with practice reports. So I'm happy to see some real hitting, some real action, and I'm excited about the direction of the team because with a young team like this, even if you take some lumps, the flashes excite you more because you see the future, you see the potential. So, hopefully we'll see those kind of flashes. So in that regard, I'm definitely excited.
One of the perceived biggest announcements from the Hurricanes camp to this point in time was the naming of Stephen Morris as the starting quarterback, which shocked me. I already thought he was the starting quarterback. I never thought it was a really big deal that he won that job. I thought it was kind of a foregone conclusion. But was there ever a question in your mind whether he was going to be the number one guy?
Well, I mean, you guys know since I've been on this show, I've been operating as if he was going to be the starting quarterback. I think the thing was Ryan Williams had started, had some success, was about the same age as Stephen Morris. So, they wanted to, just as respect to him, give him a shot to prove himself. And he actually did perform very well at camp. Coach Golden mentioned that his completion percentage was something like 78%. Obviously not the live bullets flying, but, it tells you about his accuracy, his anticipation. So he performed well, but nobody on the team doubted that Stephen Morris would become the starter. He's just so physically talented, and he's really asserted that leadership role. So it was kind of a foregone conclusion, but it was good to see him earn it and perform well. And according to the coaches and from what I've seen when I haven't been able to attend practice, he hasn't missed a beat from back surgery. Moving, throwing the ball, looks great.
Danny Money, CanesInsight.com, our guest here on the Sports Vic talking Miami Hurricane football. Now, something that every team hopes to not have to deal with, but more times than not, you certainly do. The injury bug. Talk about some of the injuries at the University of Miami. Seems like at least sort of heavily hit at the linebacker spot.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a couple injuries. Raphael Kirby looks like he's going to be gone for probably at least half the year. I know they don't want to redshirt him, but they might have no choice. But he won't require surgery. He's a very promising young linebacker, physically ready to play. Someone that they expected to play this year, but again, a true freshman. Eddie Johnson, a redshirt freshman who they were hoping to contribute, has been a little banged up, just now returned to practice. So, I mean, there's been some injuries on linebacker, but Denzel Perryman, who really is the linebacker, the only proven playmaker in that unit, he's been fine. So really no major injuries. The only major player that's kind of been on the sidelines is Chantrell Henderson. Both he's attended 2 funerals, and then he was in a car accident, had a concussion. So it's been one thing after the other. So the injury bug, I think, has been fine for the Canes so far. Nothing too serious, but the absence of Chantrell Henderson probably the only major guy that's missing.
Now, you look at Miami and their history, obviously great legendary linebackers, great legendary quarterbacks, great legendary receivers, but the running back spot is something that I certainly think of Miami from my days of being a little kid as having big-time playmakers that have gone on to be big-time NFL guys. And this year, the talk around camp, at least up here in Gainesville that I've heard, is how impressive Duke Johnson has been at that position. How's his progression been, in your opinion, to this point?
Oh, phenomenal. And really the thing about Duke Johnson that people don't necessarily understand that haven't watched him and have just read about him, they know he has that 4.4 speed. He's a 5'9" back. He can make big plays. But he's a running back. He's not a specialist. He's not like necessarily like a Jeff Demps type of back. I mean, he really can't do it all. He has a great stiff arm. He runs great inside. He actually scored 4 touchdowns in the scrimmage during goal line drills just because he has that knack for getting skinny, for finding the hole, kind of like LaDainian Tomlinson, a guy who wasn't a huge guy but was a tremendous goal line back. Duke showed some of those skills in the scrimmage, and he's also an exceptional receiver. I think that's one area where you should see him make an impact this year. Lined up in the slot, moving him around, creating mismatches. He's extremely, extremely quick. It's probably his greatest attribute. Very savvy, as comfortable in any spot on the field, very football savvy. and he can catch. During the 7-on-7 circuit, flag football, when he was still in Norland, he made spectacular catches. I'm talking diving, one-handed stuff, and I think that area is one area where he really will create some problems for opposing defenses.
Danny, for Miami Hurricane fans listening to you right now, getting excited about Duke Johnson, we shouldn't get confused here. When we start the season, Mike James is going to be the starting running back for the Miami Hurricanes, and it sounds, in listening to Al Golden, he's excited about where he is, health-wise, weight-wise, and everything with Mike James.
Yeah, Mike James, really, the fan base was kind of down on him last year because he wasn't running with very much explosiveness. I think he averaged about 3.8, something like that, yards a carry. But people didn't know that he was battling a really serious turf toe. And it was a type of turf toe that just lingered throughout the year. He never really was the same. Did a little better towards the end of the season than the beginning, but certainly suffered with it. But the year before that, he averaged about 5.6 yards per carry and showed the ability to make those chunk runs. We know he's a tough guy. He's big. He's about 225 pounds, one of the best weight room guys we have. Very quick, coordinated guy. Reminds me a little bit of Edgar and James. Not as good as Edgar and James, obviously, but the same style. He can make you miss. He has strength. He's patient, sometimes a little too patient, which affects his goal line running, his short yardage running. But certainly a quality back, a guy that can help the team. But with the way Duke Johnson's emerging, I would not be surprised if some of the big plays, both in the goal line, in the red zone, and also just the 40, 50-yard runs, come from Duke Johnson. But they'll work in tandem. If
Al Golden's going to be successful at Miami, his effort has got to be two-pronged. Obviously getting ready for the season right now, but still has to continue to keep an eye on that 2013 recruiting class. What's the latest out on the recruiting trail for the Canes?
Recruiting's been quiet lately. The Hurricanes had their Rising Senior Day last week, where they brought a bunch of commits and a couple uncommitted prospects onto campus, and it was a success. I mean, nothing really major, no commitments. But I think the next step in the recruiting is to narrow down, or to hammer down that defensive tackle class, really lock it up. They have Keith Bryant committed. He's a very solid commitment. 4-star offers from everybody. There's 2 other 4-star prospects that they're looking very good for, McQuadius Bain and Jaynard Bostwick. I think the next step is to wrap those guys up and then really focus their attention on keeping the guys they have, especially if the notice of allegations comes down from the NCAA before signing day, and then also landing a couple more big fish. The real big name is Matthew Thomas from Booker T. This guy's someone on the message board compared him to the queen on a chessboard, and I thought that comparison was very apt. Guy that can rush the passer, he can drop into coverage, he can play a traditional linebacker, probably one of the most versatile players UM has recruited at some time. So he's the real big fish, the 5-star guy. They'll have to beat Alabama and FSU for him, but he's the real name you'll be hearing about as we get closer to signing day. But for the most part, the signing class is just about wrapped up. Most of the guys that are still out there are either strong leans or not really in the picture. So the drama is out of recruiting right now.
Danny Money, CanesInsight.com, the best in the business covering Miami Hurricane sports. As always, Danny, really appreciate your time and knowledge, my friend. Enjoy the weekend, and we'll talk to you next week.
Take care, guys.
Appreciate it. Danny Money, CanesInsight.com. Coming up next, a little buy or sell presented to you by